Wine to Five is partially funded by Albarello Luxury Hand Soap, an unscented must-have accessory for anyone who loves wine, cooking, and food. For more information, visit albarellosoap.com.
It's not 5 o'clock, and they don't care. Welcome to Wine to Five. Entertainment, education, and everyday drinking for everyday people. Your hosts are Valerie Caruso and Stephanie Davis, two wine educators who don't need a clock to know when to pour that next glass.
Welcome back to another episode of Wine to Five, everybody. And what is happening, Rap Master Val?
I said a sip, a slop, a sippy to the hippie, a drip, slip, slop, that it's time to stop, to the cork pop, twist top, to jump up the bubbles, raise our glasses, and clink to the beat. Check it out. We got Wine No Radar, shout-outs all over the world. We got silly wine news, new iTunes reviews, the how-tos, the sniff, and the swirl. Woo! Which brings us to our show. Oh my God, I cannot believe I just did that. Holy crap.
You did it.
Whew. Anyway, so.
I'm always impressed. That's so great. Okay, sippity sip. What are you having in your glass?
Sippity sip. I got my lippity lips on a little rack. Yo.
Oh my God.
Oh my God, I can't believe this. Oh, I've not been drinking all day. It just sounds like it. Yes, what's in our glasses today? I have a Lirac, and what that is a cru from the Southern Rhone. This one is by Chateau de Segrier. It's a Cuvée Reservé. That could be a song right there. Hey, hey. It is a 2012. Oh, and guess what, Steph? Guess what?
What?
It's not filtered.
What? I love not filtered.
I love not filtered. That's why we get along.
You're a tease. You're just like teasing me over there.
No, this is really pretty. In fact, I just opened it. I thought it would need some time to open up. According to the importer's website, it is 50% Grenache, 30% Syrah, 10% Cinsault, and 10% Mourvedre. It's about a $16 to $22 bottle, market dependent, of course, but this is such a great, affordable wine option for, if you don't want to open a Chateauneuf du Pape on a Tuesday afternoon.
Right? I mean, yeah.
This is lovely. This is absolutely lovely. So I would say like this, Lirac, and maybe a Rasteau and a Vaccarat. They're like the poor girls' Chateauneuf du Pape. So if you can spend $20 or less on one of these bottles, what a great house wine. I really am enjoying this. But yeah, I'm in the south of France again. So what are you drinking?
I have got bubbly.
Yay!
And yes, so I also am not breaking the bank, though. I have a Pierre Spar Cremant d'Alsace, and it's a Brut Reserve, about $20-ish. And what's kind of fun about it, too, is it's 80% Pinot Blanc and then 20% Pinot Auxerrois, and otherwise known as just Auxerrois, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And anyhow, it's got 12 months of bottle aging on the lees, and this producer dates back to over 300 years of winemaking tradition in Alsace, France. I'm really enjoying it. It's very, very classy. You could just pass this off with any fancy pants bubbly drinker. It is so nice. And the grapes are hand harvested. The vineyards are dry farmed, right? So that means no irrigation. And another little tidbit, right? The AOC of the Cremant d'Alsace was officially recognized in 1976, and yet so many people don't drink it and don't know about it. But here you are. Here's a nice $20 bottle of bubbly that, you can make your, a bubbly cocktail mimosa or something with it. But it's so beautiful you don't need to. I wouldn't do that.
Mm-mm. No, and especially because you don't see a lot of those. I mean, I love that producer, though. And for those of you that don't know, a Cremant is made the same way champagne is made, but they can't call it champagne. Why?
Because it's not from Champagne.
It's not from Champagne. So, yeah, I wish U.S. producers would stop it. Just stop it. California champagne. That makes me just so...
Crazy town.
Crazy town. Well, I'm already crazy town. But speaking of crazy town, have you ever been out to dinner with somebody who swirls and slurps their wine in public?
Yes, the slurping and gargling, you know, that you do for like a, sommelier competition or an exam, out to dinner. What?
Yeah. I mean, it's one thing if you're sitting in an exam room and you're hearing all the, and you're hearing all this going on. And it's funny, when you got like 18 people spitting and slurping and the glasses are clinking. That's one thing. But out in a restaurant, girl.
I know. Or it's weird too, even at the strangest times, I'll see people doing that. And maybe even it's just when a few people are getting together at a house and it's just kind of a casual get together. Everybody's having some wine, conversation, some snacks, and somebody's over there slurping. And I'm like, we're not really geeking out right now. Like, we're not trying to get all of the wine descriptors down for a blind tasting.
Right.
And you know what else? I hadn't even thought of this though, but I don't think we've ever done it on the show either. Okay, wait. Officially we have. Okay, Val just did the gurgling, slurping.
And usually I choke on the wine when I do that anyway. So I have this wine chew thing I like to do. I'll do a little bit of bringing that oxygen, which is why you do it. You're bringing oxygen over, you're warming up the wine in your mouth and you're bringing the oxygen to kind of get that retronasal thing going on, to get those molecules kind of up the back of your throat into those little epithelial cells on the back of the nose kind of thing. But when you're with friends and you're just enjoying a glass of wine, I've watched, you had dinner with Massimo.
Yeah.
When you were in Italy, my former teacher. Well, I'd been out to dinner with Massimo quite a bit because that's what we did in Italy. We all went out to dinner. We all had dinners together as students and teachers and whatever and events. And when Massimo, I remember watching him pick the wine. We had just finished the grape harvest and we all went to a little cantina there in Greve, in Chianti. And I used to watch Massimo choose the bottles because he would do they open the bottle, they present the bottle, and he would put his nose in a glass. And he didn't even do the tasting, and he did this wave with his hand. This kind of like, just making sure it's not corked or anything, and he would just do this thing with his hand, like, you may pour the bottle now. And it was just so classy.
Yeah.
And I thought, he didn't even sip the wine. He just made sure it wasn't funky.
Yeah, and I have been encouraged to do so over the years, that you don't have to make a big production about tasting the wine either. Once the bottle is opened and presented to you, I think the two big things, right, are to really make sure that they brought you the bottle that you ordered, including the right vintage.
That's it. Yep.
Okay, that's number one. And then the second part is to make sure it doesn't smell funky. That's really...
Sorry.
We're only talking about this because it gives us an excuse to do some slurping and gurgling, right?
Yeah. I haven't slurped. I can't.
Since your exam, probably.
Well, I take that back because we did open a bottle that we thought was kind of on the nose, and then I did it a little bit, and then into the sink it went. But, yeah. I've probably done it maybe once or twice since June.
Yeah. Well, that's it. I think, even when you could be out at a restaurant, you can be at your friend's house. If you're not geeking out about, okay, what's the acidity and the tannin and fruit, earth, wood, what are all of the descriptors that you need to hit? Why are you gurgling? That's just not necessary. Well, and then what about, okay, when to spit and when not to spit? That's the other thing, too.
I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to say that you probably shouldn't spit in the restaurant.
You're like, okay, let's move on to the next thing, because when you really don't need to be spitting. The only thing that I think, you're at a winery and you're doing some tasting, and you've got a big day ahead of you. Definitely... spit when you can if they're providing a spit cup or something for you to use. If there really isn't anything for you to use, you can, politely ask for something, but don't make a big deal about it either. I just think that a lot of it has to do with don't drink too much wine. It's not so much, you can taste, but the spitting thing, it's also like there's a time and a place for that too.
Yeah, there is. And normally most places will have a bucket. And I do find myself kind of, when I was in Washington State recently, and even in Idaho, I had to ask for one.
Yeah.
I did have to ask for one. But in Washington State, I found myself a lot of times just hey, are you using a spit bucket? May I?
Right.
Because we went over to Charles Smith. And in that place is like part wine bar, part tasting bar. It's a super cool, funky place in a garage.
Oh, neat.
Yeah, really fun, Charles Smith. But I found that I was pretty much the only one there spitting.
Yeah.
Because
it's more of a wine bar.
It is more of a wine bar.
Yeah.
I wasn't doing it where people were eating salami. They had little plates of, charcuterie and things. But it was a tasting bar, and I hadn't eaten dinner yet.
Yeah.
I'm a lightweight, and I knew we wanted to taste a few other wines before we had dinner. So being drunk is not my bag.
Right. And I think that there is a time and a place for it. I mean,
what, for being drunk?
Yeah. Definitely that too. There is a time and a place for all of that stuff. You know what the other thing that's funny about is when we talk wine with other wine professionals, we can follow the thread of the conversation, right? But when you're with people who don't have that level of vocabulary in the wine world, is it really fair to be just overly geeky and wine snobbery and they don't even know what you're talking about anymore?
Well, no, because it makes you not fun.
Yeah, right. You're never going to be invited again.
Well, yeah, nobody wants to play. As it is, nobody wants to go out to dinner with me because I don't like any of the wine list or the stemware or blah, blah, blah. You gotta learn how to get over yourself.
Yeah.
I have friends who insist on calling Moscato d'Asti champagne.
Oh, that's funny.
And it makes me bat crack crazy.
Right.
But am I going to correct them? No.
Right.
No. Now, when I send out an invitation, I said, we will have sparkling wine so we can make cocktails, or I will call it sparkling wine.
Yeah.
I won't call it champagne, but I never say, oh, you mean sparkling wine, because you never know. Someday they may show up with champagne and make me really, really happy. But at the same time, you accept the fact that your friends are being generous, and they're being wonderful, and they're sharing something with you that they love. Don't be a dick.
Yeah, no, that's it.
That's what we should call this episode.
Well, and I think it's true. It's like if you show up and they don't have a wine that you like, or it's up to your standards, it's okay if you're a wine snob. We're not saying you can't be a wine snob, but the point is you don't need to use your outside voice.
Yeah. As it is, people are afraid to bring you wine as it is because they know what you've been going through. They've come to your Save Our Liver parties.
Yeah. As
it is, they present a bottle of wine at arm's length, like you're going to bite their hand off. You may not like it. And you just, it is really hard. If you are that geek and your friends aren't equally geeky,
yeah,
it is really hard. So you kind of just, if they ask a question, great. Maybe give them a tidbit here and there if they ask. But I have found through my own experience that even when you're with other people who think they're geeky, and they don't know as much, constantly correct people is just you're just being a jerk.
Yeah, and I think that's just like anything. I mean, whether you're in healthcare or IT or finance or whatever, I mean, you don't have to get overly thick on the lingo and all of the vocab that nobody else knows. It's like inside. Only the insiders know. I mean, give it a rest. And furthermore, if you don't like the wine that's being served, that's when I certainly assert myself with the, I'll have the porter or, some microbrew that sounds really good. I have been known to just have water if there's nothing being served that I like because it's not worth being a snob about it.
No.
And I just be like, I'm taking a day off, I'm hydrating. Don't make a big deal about it.
Yeah. When I finished my diploma, my friends were super, super cool and celebratory. We were having margaritas and chili over at a friend's house, and they presented me with a bottle of Boones Farm.
What? That was a joke.
Yeah. It's not the Tickle Pink or the Strawberry Hill, but there's another one. And I'm like, oh, and I had a story because those were the wines I used to drink in high school.
Yeah.
What did she say? Yeah. Yeah. We take them into the women's locker room.
Right.
And we would drink anyway.
I drank some Boones Farm myself. I think I even climbed on top of my middle school roof and drank some Boones Farm.
Yeah. Yeah. It was 99 cents a bottle. And you know what? I had no problem with it. And so, hey man, it's wine. And like Tim Hanai says, the wine industry, it's all about selling wine. So by dissing people's choices, and discourage them from buying wine at all, you're not doing the industry any good. So, yeah, and it is hard because I really love to geek out with my wine geek friends because I enjoy things that are new and different. I get bored easily.
Yeah.
I think where we were starting with this is, what about the spitting? Some people are embarrassed to spit. Let's just talk about that for a minute. Because let's say my friends and I, especially the ones that aren't really into wine that could care less about it the way I do, let's say we all go out and do some wine tasting. And you've got some friends who are embarrassed to spit.
Yeah, but you should be the first one then. If you're the snob, help them out.
Yeah. I was fortunate when I was military. I worked with a lot of guys, and a lot of them chewed tobacco, and I got spitting lessons. Outside
you?
our
That's helpful.
Did. Absolutely. Outside, we had a little trailer back in the 80s I worked in, and the guys would go outside, and for some reason, when the guys stand around talking, even if they're not chewing tobacco, they would spit. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, hey, teach me, because it's just dripping down my chin right now. And so I had the advantage of spending a lot of time around people who did a lot of spitting, and it explains a lot, I know. But even then, I was afraid to spit when I was at the Merano, the International Wine Festival.
Oh, yeah.
And I made it to about lunchtime, and I realized, hey, getting bombed here, and I'm not going to be able to hang. And after this all day of tasting was over, we went out to a restaurant, and there was lots of wine and grappa. And then there was a Magnum of Franciacorta, and that's where the dancing on the table happened and all that. But we were out till 3 a.m, and I had to hang, so I had to learn how to spit, or I would have been passed out. Yeah. I was embarrassed to do it. I always have a little tissue with me.
Yeah, because sometimes you can be good at spitting and it's just, for whatever reason, it doesn't go as you planned. Anybody has gone through this whole spitting thing, learning how to do it, and also having stains on their shirts or dribbles down their face, that it's kind of like you've joined the club, once you've made a mistake spitting. It's like just kind of like an honorary thing. Like, now you're part of it. And so don't be afraid.
No. And like I said, carry a tissue in your pocket. So when you're at tastings and conferences and things like that, and they don't put napkins down, that makes me crazy. So I always have a tissue in my pocket, because you want to make sure that you're dribbling, whatever. Because things are going to happen. I mean, if you go to trade events, a lot of times those buckets get full really fast.
Yeah.
You spit and it all comes back on your face as everybody else's. I always have a tissue.
I think the trade event is the perfect example of really get your wine snobbery on. Get your wine geek on. You're at a trade event. Anything goes. The vocab, the spitting, the slurping, all of that stuff is great for the trade events. That's why you're there.
And I think that's what I like about trade events. I want to know how people are selling that wine, how they're going to describe it. So somebody's going to want to put that in their glass. That's what really interests me. I like to listen to how they're describing the wine and all that. And so, and there is a lot of sipping and spitting and splashing. And again, keep a tissue with you. Don't be embarrassed to spit. I think where we were going with this originally is like, when is there a time for it? I think if you're in a social situation,
right,
it's not the time.
I think it's nice for me. Being a wine educator, being in the wine industry, it definitely has its perks. I do spend a lot of time drinking wine. I enjoy getting geeky with my friends, but what I also really love is still just drinking wine and not analyzing the shit out of it. It's just, I love it.
Oh, yeah.
I like it. I'm enjoying it. I mean, at the most, I'm swirling it and sticking my nose in it, but I don't have to make a production out of it, and, it's not an exam. So I think even with my geeky friends, it's nice when you can, have 10 people together and you're not even talking about wine, but you opened up some like banging, awesome, show-stopping bottles, and you don't have to dissect them. You can just enjoy.
I really appreciate the experience of being able to systematically approach a glass of wine and determine the quality, the price point possibly, and, whether the wine is old, and being able to try to evaluate the wine. But right now, to be just objective and just dig into a wine and just put my nose in the glass and enjoy the heck out of it without worrying about whether somebody's going to rip up my tasting notes because I didn't describe whether the tannins were silky or fine-grained is man, it's a joy.
It is a joy. And that's what wine is about. So I think that's why we were motivated to like have this little banter about when to be a wine geek. But I'd like to switch gears a little bit here and not talk about wine and give you guys a factoid about mead.
Yeah, you do that. I'm going to pour some more of this because this is banging. And I can't say that on a tasting
That's right.
note.
You can't put that. So you drink on, sister. Okay, so mead and the styles of mead. Mead is an alcoholic beverage made from honey. Okay, and that's in its simplest explanation. But honey alone is too sweet for the yeast, so the water is added to dilute the honey. And before fermentation begins, it's also when they start to add all of the flavorings, right? So they can have just honey as the flavor, but a lot of meads have fruits, spices, juices, flowers even, maple syrup. I've had some that are outstanding with a tea, like an herbal tea. There's so many different things they can add to change the flavor of the mead. And then once all of that's combined, then they add the yeast, okay? That's when the yeast come into play and some nutrients and some other stuff that really gets the fermentation going. The mead comes in different styles too. So it's sweet, dry, or really anything in between. And it's also still or sparkling. So they do have carbonated mead. And not just carbonation that's added, but also having a second fermentation happen in the bottle. So that's kind of interesting. And how do you serve mead? Well, it really kind of depends on the style. And a lot of times is it called a mead maker, I think? Like a winemaker. Anyhow, it'll say on the label what the recommendation is.
Would it be a brewer or
a brewer? This is a good stump us question. But yeah,
no, it's American Mead Makers Association. So there's a meadist.com.
I think it's a mead maker.
Mead maker.
But yeah, sometimes it'll say on the label what the serving temperature is and the glassware you should use. But if not, you know, if it's a sparkling mead, you can use a champagne flute or a white wine glass and serve it chilled. So, you know, that's appropriate. If it is a sweeter style, then you should have it served closer to the cellar temperature. And for the drier styles, have it chilled. It doesn't need to be freezing cold, you know, right out of the refrigerator, because just like with wine, you know, if you serve it too cold, if the mead is too cold, you miss out on some of the aromatics and all the flavory, yummy goodness. So that's just some guidelines. But if you do like cider, there is a mead that's called Cyser, and it's Cyser, and it's honey and apple juice that's fermented together. So check that out. That's something to go explore. But yeah, so a little bit about mead is, I never really learned a lot about mead, so I would like to do some more tasting. I mean, every state makes mead. I mean, it's made all over the world. Such an ancient beverage.
And according to this article on NPR, that it is the fastest growing segment of the alcohol industry as of September 2016. So there is an American Mead Makers Journal, and we'll give you a link to that in our notes. And boy, mead cocktails. They talk about making and drinking mead, recipes, reviews, tips, and tricks. So it's apparently a big segment.
Yeah, I think people will start to see it offered at the liquor stores and the wine shops. I don't know if it'll ever get so popular that it's on a wine list, but I think there's a very good chance.
I think in some of your more funky craft hometown places, for sure. Anyway, when I lived in England, we had one year our holiday party was a medieval banquet. So we went up to this big, cold castle, Coventry Castle in Coventry, which is just up where the Jaguars are produced. And we had this, and I remember it was freezing, and we rented these medieval costumes. I still have a picture of it. I'll have to dig it up for the show notes. We were served mead, and that was the first time I'd ever had it.
Yeah, well, that's a cool story.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. But speaking of England, since we're going to move on to Wino Radar here, I mean, is that all you want to talk about with the mead?
Yeah.
Okay, and we'll link up the meadist.com, that article as well, the American Mead Maker Journal. And we'll find a picture of Val in her lady. I think I'm holding a sword, and I got these really dorky, like, 80s glasses on. But
oh, God, you have to find that picture.
So, yeah, what's on my Wino Radar has to do with England, because as this episode is airing, I am on my way to London.
Yeah.
I know. I've only flown through London and Dublin a couple times, but about 25 years ago, as this airs, I lived in England. I lived about an hour or two outside of London. And so I'm going to go over for the Wine and Spirit Education Trust graduation, which is really cool. And I'll link up a video so you can see how cool this event is. It's in Guildhall. Very excited to go, but I'll post a video of what happens at this event. It looks a bit dry, but I think it's going to be exciting because, again, slurp, slurp, slurp. But I'm also excited to go visit some of my old haunts out in Oxfordshire, which is where I used to live. So I would like to take John out, and we're going to do some Cotswolds tours and things like that so he can see my old stomping grounds. And then after that, we're off to Rome for a week, so I'm excited to see where John used to live. So I lived in England for about 3 years. He lived in Rome for about 3 years. So we're going to see each other's, haunts. And of course, we're going to eat. And of course, I'm real excited about one thing. And Steph, I think you know what that is. To buy more fazzoletti.
Oh, yes. Fazzoletti.
Fazzoletti listeners, if you think wine and Andrea Bocelli or Il Divo are the finest things to come out of Italy, then you haven't used Italian Kleenex.
True. I brought Val back a whole huge package.
You're the third friend in as many years, I'm serious, that I've said, when people are like, you want anything from Italy? I'm like, yeah, snot rags, Kleenex. Because there is nothing like, and the French too, the French have them too, but their tissues, I mean, this American tissue... Yeah. Look at the holes in
pathetic.
There. Look at the holes. I mean, it's just so... And then in your car, you can see the little fibers flying around. But, ladies and gentlemen, there is nothing like Italian Kleenex. I mean, you can, yes, I would. I would reuse a sheet of Italian Kleenex until it's destroyed. You can wrap your pastry up in it, not after you use it, of course, but you can wrap a pastry of it and eat it on the train. You can use it for when, you're standing over a hole in a back alley Italian bar and there's just nothing but a hole to pee in, and you can use it.
No, you're right.
I'm telling you, they are the best thing. So I'm going to be bringing back a whole bunch of tissues. And I hate that I'm more excited about tissue than anything else about going to Italy. But there we go. What? Yeah. So what's on your radar? Hopefully something more exciting than tissue.
Well, you know what's funny about my Wino Radar? It actually has to do with wine for a change.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And Mosswood Cabernet Sauvignon is something that Susan Golisic turned me on to because it is one of the wineries that she's visited over in the Margaret River wine region of Western Australia. It's actually more specifically located in the northern subregion of Walyabrup. And I think it's kind of a funny thing to say, Walyabrup. But anyway, I love this wine, and I'm so grateful that Susan turned me on to it. But recently, I've tasted the 2001 and the 2008 vintages that Susan has brought to different events, and they were so elegant and so powerful that even among all the other wines that we tasted from all over the world, I thought it was the showstopper. And I think that's pretty cool because I don't necessarily gravitate to Australian wines. And I seem to prefer French and Italian wines almost over everything else, unless it's like super geeky and obscure. And this Cabernet Sauvignon is really at its finest. Mosswood is so excellent. There's so much artistry. It's an age-worthy wine, obviously. I mean, just drinking the 2001 the other night, I loved it so much compared to, we were having Farniente and Frog's Leap and some other really outstanding wines.
Oh, poor thing.
I I know.
I feel so bad for you. Way to hang in there and suck it up and take one for the team, girl.
I know. I'm getting my snobbery on right at the moment. Wait, give me some slurps. Hold on a second.
Hang on. Yeah. Hey, did you slurp the Mosswood? I almost spit this all over the microphone, by the way. Did you slurp the Mosswood?
I did not. No. It's
Girl.
It's almost like too good to slurp, you know? Don't even slurp it. I loved it so much. Anyway, I did a lot of swirling. And anyway, if it wasn't on your radar, now it is. And you can find some different vintages out there. It's not inexpensive, so it definitely is a special occasion wine. Mm-hmm. But, you know, for anybody that you know that is really geeky about Napa Cabernet or even some great Bordeaux.
Yeah.
This Mosswood really outshines a lot of other Cabernets. So,
and I think maybe we owe our listeners an episode on Australian wines, and maybe we should get an Australian winemaker on here, because there's something about Margaret River a lot of you may not realize. You've heard of the Barossa. You've heard of the Coonawarra, which is amazing Cabernet as well. Western Australia, Margaret River, I mean, that's they liken it a lot of times to Bordeaux because it is close to the sea. It's got that maritime thing going on. It's got the gravelly soils. The grapes grow there in the same conditions as they do in Bordeaux. So that's why they do compare it. You know, in fact, a lot of your essays, they will ask you to compare and contrast the regions of Margaret River and Bordeaux. So I think we do owe you guys an episode on Australia, and we'll just have to get on it if we haven't by the time this airs, which I don't think we will. So definitely, thanks for that, and get maybe sometime you can slurp it and let us know how that goes.
I think that's a wrap then.
I think it's a wrap. Patreon love. Thank you so much, our Patreon supporters. We're sending out love to our tenacious tasters. Jeffy from the Hilarious Drinking Show, We Like Drinking, and our It's Not 5 O'Clock, We Don't Care listeners, Meg, Clay, John, and Andrew. We thank you so much. We are pre-recording this, so if anyone does join our Patreon list between now and the time this airs, then we are not meaning to leave you out, but just please know this is a pre-recorded episode. All right, and Gewürztraminer, Riesling 2, guess what, Whistlers? We love you. So you rock, you download with so much soul, we're going to podcast till we're 100 years old. Let's share the love.
Oh, and I've got to get a couple of giggles in there. So sorry about that, everybody. Val is on a roll.
This wine is so good.
And you guys, we love you. And if you love us, then we know you'll share our show with your friends and your online community. And we certainly appreciate all of your involvement and feedback. Totally go to our website. Check out the SpeakPipe. Leave us one of those little voicemails. And then, if we love it so much, which we know we will, then we'll put it on the show.
Ooh, maybe you can rap for us.
Yeah. Send us your
Leave us a rap.
Yeah. Leave us a little rap. And leave us a glowing iTunes review. We always love that. That makes our hearts sing. Mm-hmm. And for our listening pleasure, this is kind of cool. The other day, I helped somebody find us on iHeartRadio, and they were really excited about that. So if you want to see and listen to us there, go check that out. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, YouTube, Google Plus Spaces, and you can also find our store on our website. So check that out. And you can connect with Val on Twitter at WineGallonBox and on the Vino with Val Facebook page and on Instagram as Vino with Val.
Sorry, hon.
No.
Please go ahead. I'm being rude.
No, you're not. I love it. I wish I had some of that here with me right now. But you can find me on Twitter at Albarello Soap and on the Albarello Soap Facebook page and YouTube channel. And I am on Instagram as The Wine Heroine. So that's it, I think.
That's it. So until next week,
keep on cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. Attack.
Cheers. Oh my God.
Thank you for listening to the Wine to 5 podcast. Be sure to check us out at Facebook/WineTWO5 and tune in next week for more fun and useful sip tips.